Did you ever think that working a 9 to 5 means that you'll never be rich? Well, actually, right. Unless you do certain things. And in this episode of the Affluent Entrepreneur Show, I'm going to break it down for you. I'll walk you through the things that you need to do, even in a 9 to 5, that make it possible for you to be rich. All right? See you in the episode. All right. So here's an interesting thing is that I had someone tell me the other day that the fact that they work a job, the fact that they work a 9 to 5 means that they'll never be rich. And it isn't the fact that they work a 9 to 5 that means that they'll never be rich. It's the fact that they have that attitude. So in this episode, I want to start to walk through this idea of a 9 to 5 job. Is it dead? Is it possible? What do you need to do? How do you do it to navigate it? Because I truly believe that financial freedom is a birthright. It doesn't matter whether you're in a 9 to 5 or you run your own business. It's possible. And we're going to talk about some statistics, some pathways, and some things to do it. Because here's what we know. The 9 to 5 was originally created as part of, it was before the industrial age, into the industrial age. But what the problem is with the 9 to 5, it was the assembly line, the manufacturing, all of that stuff, is it commoditized your talents, it commoditized your skills, it reduced them to time, okay? It was something that allowed us, in a time where the primary industries were manufacturing and agriculture, to make it work and make sense. But as we transitioned into information technology, service technology, and all of those things, it shifted some things, but we didn't shift with it. See, one of the challenges that back when we were doing these kind of industrial age thinking things, and I've said this before, I think our retirement system is broken and we need to look at it very differently, is that in that time, you would invest your life into a company. You would work, 40, 50 years into a company. And then once you retired, they gave you something called a pension plan. And that pension plan is what we would call a lifetime income. So they just said, you spent decades of your life here with us. So because you spent decades of your life here with us, we're going to make sure that we take care of you the rest of your life. And there was a lot of companies that did that until they couldn't anymore because it got too expensive. People were living longer. And so now all of a sudden, the idea of giving everyone lifetime income became more problematic and more expensive. So what they did is they started to do away with them. And so now you no longer, you had still the industrial age thinking, but you no longer had the pension plans along with it. They gave you 401ks and they gave you IRAs and they gave you these other plans. But these other plans never guaranteed you an income. These other plans only guaranteed whatever you did with it if you put money in it. And now the pension plans were there whether you decided to or not, you participated. But you can have a 401k plan, not contributing, you got nothing. You can have an IRA and not contribute, and you got nothing. You're required to put money in. Not only that, you're required to invest it. In a pension plan, they invest it for you. I sit on a committee. We run a $50 million pension plan. And we make the investment decisions for everyone that's invested in it. They don't have to worry about it. We got it. But when it's your own 401k or whether it's your IRA, it's in your lap. And so the challenge is that a lot of people don't necessarily understand it, do it, or get themselves involved with it because they say it's complicated. It doesn't have to be. It can be simple. It may not be easy, but it can be simple. We just need to know a few things. And so here's what we know is that the demands on those older companies went up. And so they could not sustain it and they put it back in your lap. Now you got to look at it and say, how do we do this? And can you build wealth even in a 9 to 5? And the answer is yes. There's a study of 10,000 millionaires, believe it or not. 10,000 millionaires, 79%, almost 8 out of 10 were first generation millionaires. First generation meaning that they built it on their own. It wasn't inherited. It wasn't gifted. It wasn't winning the lottery. They created it. That means 8 out of 10, y'all. That means that you have a chance to do it in your own lifetime. Here's the most important statistic in this. 31% of them never made much more than $100,000 during their career. What does that tell me? It tells me it wasn't about how much they made. It was about what they did with what they made that made the difference. And so whether you're in a 9 to 5 or you have your own business, doesn't matter, because there's plenty of people that I know have their own business. They're making a lot of money, but they're spending a lot of money and they got nothing to show for it. Then there's those that are making $100,000 a year, but they're doing the right things with their money, so their money works harder for them than they did for it, and they find themselves in a place of financial freedom because they built a money machine. And that's the thing that I want for you. Here's what we need to understand. There is shifts in employment. There's shifts in the labor market. There's shifts going on. We've got the gig economy. We've got people that are doing second and third jobs to not necessarily make ends meet. Yes, there is. That's a whole nother discussion with that. But also to realize that it's important for them to have multiple sources of income to feel more secure, to feel in a place of doing that. And now they also have, instead of employees, contract employees, where I can go into an organization and be paid more to do a project than I would if I was employed full time. So here's the biggest things to think about. I want to talk about the benefits of the 9 to 5 first, then I want to talk about the things that you need to do. All right? The first is this, is that, look, getting a job with a good company comes with a lot of benefits that you would not have automatically if you did this on your own. So you can't disregard it. You can't presume that well, I'm not going to get anywhere if I'm working a 9 to 5. That's not necessarily true, because with a good company, you have the ability to get health care. Like, I look at it, my wife's company, our health care is with my wife's company. We've got great health care. Thank God, because of my cancer journey, that we have the health care. PTO, you get paid time off. Now, will they limit it? Sure they will. Okay? But there's this idea that, I start my business, I have complete control of my time. I got news for you. Unless your business is run right, the business is controlling you instead of you controlling the business. You can't take a month off your business unless it's built right. That's a whole nother discussion and a whole nother topic for another time. But just the fact that it's your business doesn't give you the ability to walk away, because you realize that you walking away might cut off the cash flow. And how do you pay the bills? So working a 9 to 5, you have the security of a paycheck. Now, is it secure? It's a whole nother conversation, because you could lose your job at any time, because most places, it's based upon their performance and that kind of thing. It can happen. But I think that you need to understand the other benefits. So PTO, you got health care benefits. You can get training and experience at these places. I went to a large consulting firm right out of college, and I stayed there for a good 5-6 years or so. Not because of the pay, trust me, because I was working long hours, 10 o'clock at night, for not a lot of salary. I mean, my starting salary when I came out of college, now mind you, it was a while ago, it was $27,000. Okay? But the education and the experience set me up to do some of the things that I got to do today. Okay, so there's benefits to being able to be trained. There's possible matching on retirement plans that you can get from your employees. So you participate in the 401k and they might match the first 3%. So you put 3% of your salary in, they put 3%. That's 100% return. You can't ignore that in doing that. Then you also have some companies that'll give you long-term incentives to stay on. My wife has a long-term incentive plan that vests over time, that kind of keeps her locked in, saying, hey, if I leave, I lose part of this, so I'm going to just stay. And so all of those things can't be disregarded. When we start to talk about 9 to 5s and you talk about it won't make you rich, you got to look at the whole package. Okay. Remember I said 8 out of 10, 79% are first generation, and 31% never made more than much more than $100,000. So what do you need to do? Let's talk about the process and what you need to do to make sure that you take advantage and do the right things with your money in your 9 to 5 to build you and put you on the path to financial freedom and wealth. And the first thing is this, is to automatically first look at it through the eyes of the wealth priority ladder, which we talk about. And that is this. The first thing I want everyone to do is to have $1,500 in a comfort fund put away, or 1 month's expenses, one or the other, whichever one's larger. Here's why. This isn't your emergency fund. This is I don't have to go into debt. I don't have to sell something. I don't have to dip into something if something unplanned happens. A transmission goes out on the car, okay? You have a problem with the house. You have a medical situation which requires you to pay your deductibles. All those things, they're taken care of in this 1 month's expenses or this $1,500. So you don't have to go into debt to do that. That's the comfort fund. But then the next piece of that is that once we have that in place, we need to make sure that you don't have any destructive debt, that you're not using debt to finance your lifestyle, that you're not using debt to finance what we call consumables, the stuff that you use up, clothing, luxury vacations, luxury items, technology, TVs, furniture, all that stuff. If you cannot pay for it in cash, what that means is you're borrowing from your future to live a lifestyle that's outside your means today. Now, I'm not talking about buying a home. I'm not even talking about buying a car, as long as you don't overbuy a car. I am talking about your regular lifestyle. And so we want to make sure that you have no destructive debt. So the second stage of this is getting that debt, the destructive debt, paid down. You got to put yourself on a debt payment plan. If you have consumer debt or destructive debt or lifestyle, first things first, stop the bleeding. We got to stop the spending so we don't go further into debt. And second, we got to get ourselves on a payment plan. If you need a way to do that, I have a free resource. Go to melabraham.com/no debt. And we'll make sure we get it to you. And we'll also make sure that it's in the description below to make sure that you have it. But we need you to get out of destructive debt. At the same time, I want you to be building your peace of mind fund. Some people call it an emergency fund. I call it a peace of mind fund. The same time, I want you funding that. Some people say 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 months. I think you're wrong. I think you need 9 to 18 months. Call it 12 on average. I think that you need more space to have peace of mind. So over time, I want you to build that up, put it in a high yield cash account, out of sight, out of mind. It is there to sustain you if there is a prolonged problem. So comfort fund, get out of destructive debt and build a peace of mind fund. Then we get into investing. Then we turn around and we say, okay, now we're going to invest. This is where I say we're building towards freedom. We're building towards freedom, baby. Here we go. Now, this is where we say we want you to ultimately push yourself to a point where you're putting 20 to 25% of your income away. Where do you put it away? The first place to go is to make sure, especially if you're in a 9 to 5 and they have a 401k, is to get 100% of the employer match. If your company is matching how much you put into your 401k, you make sure you put in enough to get 100% of the match. It is free money. So if they're going to match 4% of your salary, you make sure that at a minimum you're putting 4% away because they're going to put 4% for you. I can't tell you that people just leave around. If I walk through your office and I'm dumping $50 bills and $100 bills on the floor, you're going to walk by them or you're going to pick them up. I think you want to pick them up. Why are we doing that in the 401k? Let's pick them up. All right. And so that means that we're going to put the money in. So we're going to get the free money first. And that is making sure that we max out the match. And if you have access to an HSA, a high yield save, or a high deductible health plan with a health savings account, this is the time that I would start to think about funding it also. Once we know that I've got 100% of the match money in place, now we can look at it and say, all right, so where else can we go? I'm going to take a portion of the money now. I'm going to get 100% of the match. Then I'm going to move out. And if I qualify to put money in a Roth, I'm going to max out the Roth. Now this year, the max on the Roth is $7,000. So you max out the employer match, you max out the Roth for $7,000 as long as you're not above the income limits. And now you come back to the 401k to match. Why am I doing it this way? Here's why am I doing it this way. I'm trying to take advantage of, first, the free money, anything that the company is matching. Second, the tax-free money. So the Roth, when I put money into the Roth, that $7,000 I put in the Roth, when I take it out down the road, completely tax-free. So I want to have tax-free dollars down the road. And then we come back to the 401k and we fully fund the 401k. You can max out the 401k this year at $23,000. And if you're 50 or over, you can go up to $30,500. And that adjusts every year. So you got to look at the limits. So point being is that there is a recipe to maximize your returns, to get the biggest benefit, and to build you towards wealth. How did 31% of the people build their millions when they didn't make much more than $100,000 during their career? They did it this way. They had a process, they had a recipe, and they had a way something to follow. And that's what I'm giving to you. So start with a comfort fund, blow out the destructive debt and the consumer debt while building the peace of mind fund, then start getting 20 to 25% of that income into your investments. Start with maxing out the employer match, max out the Roth, then max out the 401k. And if that's not 20 to 25%, then we're going to push to other things beyond that. But point being is that just because you're in a 9 to 5 doesn't keep you from being rich. There's plenty of people that have done it, and you can too. And if you need additional income to do that, you might need to consider supplemental income sources, a second gig thing, taking some of your talents and skills and contracting it to somewhere else, because now all of a sudden you can put money away. Think about this. $800 put away a month at 8% in 30 years turns into $1.2 million, $800. So if you needed to get a little additional income and you made an additional $800 a month and you just use that to invest, put $1 million in your pocket. Point being is that it isn't about how much you make, and it has nothing to do with whether you're in a 9 to 5 or a business. It has everything to do with what you do with them. Make the discipline, the behaviors. Remember, wealth creation is less to do about money and more to do about choices, decisions, and behaviors. So if we build these behaviors, whether you're in a 9 to 5 or a business, you'll find your pathway to being rich. Follow the recipe, follow the process that we teach, and we'll make sure that we get you there. All you got to add is the dedication, the discipline. Keep running the miles. All right? I hope you found this of value. I hope that this helps you. And I hope that you now see that a 9 to 5 doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be rich. All right? Until we get a chance to see each other in another episode or on the road, always strive to live a life that outlives you.